Hey guys, what's happening? So today we're going to talk about the fat of the land. Here we go. He was so fat that when Ehud thrust the sword into the wicked man's bulging frame, the entire weapon was nearly swallowed up. Thus perished King Eglon, a very fat man who was dispatched by one of God's deliverers. Another biblical example of a fat man was the priest Eli. He had been unfaithful and cowardly, especially by failing to discipline his wicked sons, who as unfaithful priests were oppressing the people of God and manipulating the young women. Both of these XXL men died violent deaths, with their overweight frames being highlighted as shameful attributes and connected to their demise. Intense, right? Allow the violent intro of this topic shock you towards self-control and diligence. And there's a lot of ways that we need to cultivate that, don't we, men? Is it easy to be diligent, plan for times with our kids and execute it and spend time with them, eating dinner, playing, asking about how their days are, cultivating them? Is that easy or is that difficult? Is it easy or difficult to trust the Lord with the number of children we have, and as part of our being strong in the Lord, spend time with our wives and not worry about what comes of it? Is that easy or is that difficult to trust the Lord with the number of kids that He gives you? Is it easy or difficult to be healthy in modern America? It might be easier than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago, with all the rise in organic food and knowledge about it's maybe not the best thing to eat a Snickers bar for breakfast, stuff like that. Processed foods, right? Processed foods, things that have stuff in it that does not compost. Those are some practical tips. And so, guys, basically just want to make a biblical argument for you that excuse me, the conviction that we might feel at times that when we're not healthy, when we're overweight, when we're stepping into obesity or type 2 diabetes, whatever it might be, smoking, cigarettes, there is a biblical precedent to be healthy, basically, physically. So I'm going to share some passages with you guys. One of them I'm sure you're familiar with. You might be familiar with several of them, but Titus chapter 2 verse 6, it says that bodily training has some value, while training in godliness has value in every way, as it holds promise both for the present life and also for the life to come. So it's not the most important thing, guys, to be working out, eating healthy, taking care of your body, but it does have some value. It says, that's the New Testament. Here's Proverbs 25. It talks about it's not good to eat much honey, nor is it good to seek one's own glory. A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. So nobody wants to be that, right? A basically totally beat down, assaulted city by the enemy, catapults hurling huge 200-pound stones and dead bodies and just breaking you down. We don't want to be like that, right? We want to be strong. We want to have defenses, so to speak, spiritually, physically, etc. How about Joshua chapter 14, an interesting passage buried in the Old Testament. It talks about Caleb, who was one of the faithful spies along with Joshua. There was 2 faithful spies and a bunch of unfaithful ones who were afraid and made the people afraid. And so what they did was they gave an accurate report of the giants in the land, but they said, we can do this. We can, by God's strength, clear house, fulfill the mission, take these guys out, and inherit the promised land. And so later in life, when he's about 80 years old, 85, it talks about how he was faithful. He reminds Moses of that and whoever he was talking to. But he also says, my strength has not diminished. From when I was 40, now that I'm 85, my strength has not diminished. I still come and go, and I still have strength for battle, basically, which is pretty cool. If any of you guys are familiar with John Lovell and the Warrior Poet Society, he has this... I think he's older just because he has all gray hair, but that's a crown of splendor for the righteous, right? So it's nothing to be ashamed of to have gray hair, but he's an older guy, but he's super built. They call him like the battle gnome. I think his name's Paul, and he's he's a very strong dude, and he's, tactical. He knows how to handle himself with a firearm, obviously, and physically. And it's just like, okay, that's an extreme example of someone who's like, at least the dad's age, right? I'm sure he's in his 40s, possibly 50s, I would guess. So, he's like in the grandpa mode almost, if not already. And similar to Caleb at the end of his life, he's got strength, right? Don't know if Paul battled him as a believer. May the Lord bless him. I'm sure John Lovell will, take good care of him, so to speak, spiritually. How about 1 Timothy 4:8? You know what? That Titus 2:6 I mentioned, I can't remember if it was Timothy or Titus where it talks about bodily training is of some value. So we'll move on from that one. For 1 Timothy 4:8, Titus 2:6, you guys can look that up. How about Song of Solomon chapter 5? This one, guys, is pretty, it's got some heat to it. It's the two married lovers are delighting each other. And the bride talks about how my beloved is strong, ruddy, and handsome. His thighs are like alabaster, talking about his chest, I think. And just the idea of like a man who is not flabby, not like King Eglon, not like Eli the priest, Those are the only two instances, guys, where I think that I know of in the Bible where it talks about men being very fat, and they both die, like I mentioned in the intro, and it's not good. It's not what we want to settle for. We want to be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. The warrior mentality that's in Ephesians chapter 6, right? Take the full armor of God, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the belts of truth, the sword of the Spirit. These are warrior, type of passages. And Peter, I think it talks about, what does it say? Something like, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul, right? So you gotta believe that eating 2 Snicker bars for breakfast or, half a box of donuts or whatever, that's not going to cultivate strength, self-control, both physical and spiritual blessing to us. That's going to create death, right? The more we walk in that, if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. And so I've made a biblical case for you guys. Your wife is delighting in you. She's more attracted to you, right? That's a good thing. And we should both be pursuing that as men and women, to be attractive to our spouses, being in shape, eating healthy, and not letting ourselves go. Basically, that's not self-control. That's not loving our neighbor. How's that going to influence the strength that we have to play with our kids? How is that going to influence, if you're a pastor, how is that going to influence what you speak to the congregation? If you're 50, 100 pounds overweight, is that going to exude confidence in them regarding the shepherd that's supposed to be a model of things like self-control, diligent care for the flock, equipping the saints for the work of ministry, all that? Or is it going to be easier for them to see as like, not a lot of respect toward you, brother? Sorry to say, I say that with love, guys. We all have things that we struggle with and we need to fight against, but that is something relevant. So I would encourage you guys to think about that. Guys, that passage where I mentioned about it's not good to eat much honey. A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. I still struggle with that. I don't, on the outer surface, I'm not overweight, nor am I hugely like bulk up. I want to get bigger, honestly. I'm trying to gain some weight. It's a little bit harder for me. I'm on the spectrum where I want to kind of gain weight, and I'm trying to slowly increase my bench press and get more lower body workout for more of an overall health. So that's just me being real. I have to be really careful with sugar. It's in my family history, right? We know passages that talk about like, I will visit the iniquities of the father on the 3rd and 4th generation. I see a handful of things, guys, 5, 10, even things that are pretty common in my ancestral line that I really have to fight against. And that includes eating too much sugar, right? Don't want to develop type 2 diabetes. I don't want to have, glaucoma or whatever things can affect your eyesight and your general health by eating too much sugar. It's really easy to have that triple serving size of ice cream, right? A serving size of ice cream is probably like a half cup, I would guess. and it's really easy to go way above and beyond that, right? We all know how that goes. A big, 24-ounce cup shake. How many servings of ice cream is that? It's probably 4 servings or more. So just something to be careful about, guys, something to be alert to. Obviously, no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. We trust the Lord. Some of you brothers, you might be big guys, not in a good way. And you have a long way to go. It took a long time to get into the pit, and it's going to take a long time to get out. By God's grace, you can do it though. You can have brothers praying for you. Keep in mind some practical tips, guys, is, eating stuff that does compost. If you throw it in a compost pile, it will actually rot. So that's, processed foods, things with dyes, stuff like that. The more you get away from that, the healthier you're going to be, basically. Drink lots of water. If any of you guys are into tactical type stuff, put on your plate carrier, do some burpees. Start with just 3 burpees if you have a plate carrier, and then go from there. Okay, I say 3 times a week, I'm going to do 3 burpees and some sit-ups. And then the next week, I'm going to do 4 burpees, kind of build up. Take care of yourself. Don't overdo it. Don't hurt yourself, but start making progress, I recommend drinking water throughout the day, at least a half gallon throughout the day, guys, especially in between meals. And you might find that you want to drink more water, actually. Sometimes in the summer, I'll drink a gallon plus, a gallon and a quarter, 5 quarts, I guess, in the summer if I'm really working hard on my construction type of work. So we talked about, eating healthy, water, going for walks. Consider taking a walk. Every time you eat, try to tell yourself, whether it's I'm just working naturally, construction or whatever I do, or if I have a sedentary job, I'm going to take a 5-minute walk after lunch, after breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 5-minute walk just to, I can pray, I can get fresh air, get my body moving. Something else you guys could try, that I found helpful is, especially if I'm in a season where I'm not getting able to work out as much, which for me personally, guys, is like, April to October. It's harder to work out because I'm working so many hours, 60 plus hours a week. And it's like, okay, bodily training is of some value. So I'm going to do some push-ups, right? I'll do some burpees. Again, put your plate carrier on, do 1 burpee and 3 push-ups. Do that 7 times. That's something that I do a lot. Do that 7 times quick. That takes like 2 minutes, if that. Take a walk around, do that 3 sets. You got a 10-minute workout right there. Pretty strenuous, pretty good for you. Not that bad. Not a lot of time, not a lot of weight. In the off season though, I do recommend, working out with weights. Try to build up your weight, get a barbell, do squats, whatever. I'm sure you guys can figure it out how to look up the details. One thing I would say is consider doing some non-conventional type stuff. Some guys talk about, like, I'm going to get a 80-pound bag of rice or sand or whatever and kind of carry it around, like, or 150 even, build up to it slowly, right? Start with 80 and build up to it. But that's like you're carrying a person, right? Fireman style. That's practical. Doing some jumps, hanging on for dear life, put your vest on and hang on a bar. Get a $20, $25 pull-up bar that you can hook up into your door frame, right? And it securely hangs there. Those are some tools, guys, some practical things. So do it by God's grace, for the Lord's glory, for the benefit of your wife, the benefit of your children, your community, the benefit of other guys, right? We look at each other and we influence each other. So if I see a guy who's healthy and he's godly, I'm going to think, man, that's inspiring, right? Whereas if I see a man who's godly but really overweight, it's going to think, okay, there's some disconnect there. And that's not what I want, So we do influence each other, whether for ill or for good, whether by bad example or good example. In addition to that, someone breaks in your house at night. What's more likely to have the mental, physical, spiritual self-control acumen for you to potentially fight that guy off? Whatever means that you use, right? Whatever means you have to use to protect your family. That's something, right? Is that part of our job as men to protect? I think I've hopefully made a good case for you guys biblically, practically, why it's good to not let yourself go. And if you have to get back into it, or if you're kind of a regular guy, just continue to seek strength. Remember that bodily training is of some value, okay?